Welcome, everybody. We are just a little bit after 11, but we are just going to give it a few more minutes before our webinar chairperson joins and for other people to come in. We've got about 30 attendees, so we're just going to give it a few more minutes before we start. Thanks.
Good morning. The session chairperson has joined, so we should start as soon as he is ready. Session chairperson, if you are speaking, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Humble apologies. We had just some technical errors here on our side, but I trust everybody is still good. So, my name is Elwin Gallant, the past chairperson of the NACCW, and it's my privilege today to chair this webinar. And we would want to say welcome to all that have joined this very important webinar talking to us about contentious issues, global climate change and implications for the child and youth care sector in South Africa. And I trust that all that have joined are, like me, also very passionate about the environment and where we live, and that we need to take care of it. We want to welcome our child and youth care workers that have joined us this morning, wherever they are in their watch parties. We also would like to welcome our National Executive Committee, our Director Donald Ngonyama, and the NEC, as well as our provincial executive members and all other social service professionals that are with us today. We are privileged this morning, as well as our NACCW staff, but we are also privileged this morning to have with us quite a few people that will do presentations, and we will introduce them as they will come on board to speak to us. So we have first in line and our speaker, Dr. Romola Thumbadoo. I hope I express your name correctly. We used to meet face-to-face at conferences, but now we are on this virtual platform, and she will give us her input. We also want to welcome those other guests. She will maybe also introduce them because she's currently there in Canada, and she worked in the federal government sectors in Canada, including criminal, social, and indigenous justice for over 30 years with the Circle of All Nations Eco Peace Community, founded by the late Elder William Comanda. She completed a PhD and postdoctoral research at Carleton University, focusing on Elder Comanda's environmental legacy and vision for the Asimbaka Sacred Clouderi site. Since 2022, she has collaborated on an international children's cognitive story mapping initiative with National Association of Child Care Workers and Durban University of Technology. She serves as coordinator of the Circle of All Nations and a research associate at Carleton University. Dr. Thumbadoo, welcome this morning. But before you start, there are some people who are at times, like those children, they don't always listen. So I just need to remind our participants, please mute your microphones, switch your cameras off. You are welcome to ask your questions in the comment box or make your comments, and we will allow people to, there will be a question and answer session after we have done with our speakers this morning, and then we will engage and interact. So please jot down your questions, or you could raise your hand later when we participate. If you have any challenges in the meantime, just also notify us in the chat box, as we need to want to assist. Our technical team is not all available this morning, so we are reliant on others to assist us. Before we hand over to our first speaker, I just want to allow our director, Donald Ngonyama, to share something. He's raised his hand. Donald, over to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairperson, and good morning to all the attendees and our speakers for today. I just want to indicate that we may have been joined by some international guests, and I will check exactly who has joined us from the international platforms. If you have joined, Chair, I would like to especially welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you to our director. I think, good people, we are then ready to start, and we will hand over then to our first presentation. It will speak to us about global climate change and implications for the child and youth care sector in South Africa. We ask Dr. Romola Thumbadoo to open the camera, and let's give her a warm welcome and a round of applause. Is Dr. Thumbadoo ready for us?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Oh, good morning.
Greetings.
Good morning. Yes. Thank you. We can see you now.
Okay, really good. Very good to join you here this morning. Well, for me, it's very early in the morning, but for you, it's late in the morning. Thank you for the welcome, and thank you for including me in this presentation. Look very much forward to joining the group. I think Nicia is going to help me with making the slides move through the presentation, so perhaps we can start with that, Nicia. Thank you so much. Do I assume I still have about a half an hour, or should I just perhaps move through things a little bit quickly?
We will allow you to do, your best in the time that we've given you. Since
Okay.
we will adjust. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. So this then is a Circle of All Nations presentation that I'm making on climate change and related considerations that impact on our work here, and so, in a sense, add to the context of doing the child and youth care work in a very challenging new phase uh, of Earth evolution. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you, Nicia. So I just wanted to also add to that introduction from our chair, a mini self-introduction. So it's an honor for me to join you here to focus attention on this critical global reality of our times, climate change. I've been following NACCW's 50 years plus work for over a quarter of a century myself, and it has been a great learning experience to engage with the team over the years, from the leadership, the child and youth care workers and mentors, to the learners themselves. And hello, Donald, as well. Good to see you out there. I represent the Circle of All Nations here. It's the legacy work of the late North American indigenous elder William Commander. He too was very interested in the NACCW work. In 2000, he hosted 5 youth at his International Millennium Peace Gathering in Ottawa. He participated in the 2001 training session with NACCW work in KZN, and he was an inspiration for our children's cognitive story mapping work with the folk. So he's very much a part of the voice I bring forward with my own work. I myself was born in Durban, and Zeni is my younger sister. I did my master's research on detribalization in the novels of South African writer Peter Abrahams, and I see many threads of his writings reflected in our reality more than 50 years later. I used to work extensively with adults in the revolving door of the criminal justice system, and this makes me value your work even more. The voices of NACCW learners have been exposing factors that lead to crime, the bullying, the substance abuse, the gender-based violence, social inequities, and they have also been alerting us to the challenges of climate change. They are making strong aspirational statements about their futures as they take their place as emerging leaders. This is important because by the end of the century, nearly half the world's young people will live in Africa. Thank you. Next slide. So these are the reasons I want to project myself into this presentation and say these are things that come to my mind all the time when I think about this topic. And I actually start with the voice of one NACCW learner who I met in 2011 in Ndondo Square. Lwandile Makibi wrote this about climate change, pollution, deforestation, health, and biodiversity 15 years ago. And I'm going to leave you to read the text yourself later when you get the PowerPoint presentations. But what was remarkable was this child in a single parent family told me back then that he wanted to become a geologist. And I said, well, do you know there's a climate conference happening in Durban at this time? And there in that isolated community in the Cape, he said, yes, he did know about it, and that he wanted people to stop polluting the river in his area. So youth have been attuned to the changes that have been happening in their environment for a long time. I'm glad to bring his voice forward first. Next slide, please. Thank you, Nicia. So I want to start by talking about Earth evolution so we can see the context of climate change. Geology is the study of the Earth and the processes acting upon it. And Earth has been evolving for over 13 billion years. In relatively recent times, we have these geological epochs that we're conscious of. First, the Ice Age, 25.5 million years ago till about 11,700 years ago. That's when we had the megafauna, the mammoths and things like that. Then we had the Holocene, 11,700 years ago till the present time. This is when the Earth warmed up enough to host human life. And that is what we call the era of the modern man and modern civilization. Finally, there's a new term that's being used nowadays, and it's called Anthropocene. Unofficially, today is known as the age of the Anthropocene because human activity is the dominant force shaping Earth's climate and ecosystems. So this is now considered a creeping crisis. This is the age of rapidly increasing climate change. Thank you, Nicia. Next slide, please. So what is climate change? Climate change refers to short-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. Such shifts can be natural due to changes in the sun's activity, so that's part of the cosmic system, solar flares emitting electromagnetic radiation that reaches the Earth, and climate change is also caused by volcanic eruptions which occur from the center of the Earth's core. But what is climate change in the age of the Anthropocene? Over the last 200 years, humans have created a greater impact on climate than was experienced over the past 2,000 years. Human activity is now the main driver of climate change through industrialization and rapid increase in greenhouse gas. So what is greenhouse gas? It is a gas produced primarily through the burning of fossil fuels, that is coal, oil, and gas. These are the fossil materials that the Earth in its own intelligence sequestered to prevent the creation of carbon and greenhouse gas, but we are releasing that at unprecedented levels in our current time period. Greenhouse gas is also caused by methane through agriculture, through the digestive processes of cattle, particularly industrial farming cattle, and also garbage. Next slide, please. So this brings me then to talk a little bit about indigenous peoples and indigenous knowledge. And here I'm talking about people who've always lived in their ancient homelands and developed and preserved a deep interconnected relationship with Earth. And the people in Namibia are now contributing to new thinking in environmental science. I just heard their voices about this relationship 2 weeks ago, a few weeks ago, and it's very interesting what that relationship brings to our thinking. In North America, indigenous peoples began to note and express concerns about Earth changes over the past 100 years, and officially to the United Nations in writing in the mid-1940s. That's almost a century ago. William Commander himself, the elder of the Circle of Four Nations, talked about environment and climate change at the Canadian institution nationally in 1987, at the pre-United Nations conference deliberations in 1991, at the United Nations first Indigenous conference, which the Indigenous people called Cry of the Earth, back in 1993. I met him in 1997 when I was working in justice. I found he raised the urgency of the escalating environmental challenges at every meeting we went to, irrespective of whether it was about justice or art or childcare. I used to talk about the environment as the beautiful sunset, the grand mountains, the great Durban beach, but he talked about a relationship with his Mother Earth, a living Earth, and that taught me a great deal about climate change. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit about the legacy that informed his thinking, gathering and sharing knowledge, reflecting and deep personal research, and then sharing. And here with the great grandson-in-law of Madiba, who visited him in Canada, but he talked about the climate change issues back then, in maybe 20 years ago. Next slide, please. Yeah, it takes a little while, I see, for the slides to slip across the ocean to me. Um, and so William Commander did a lot to raise our awareness of environmental issues, and I wrote my thesis on Circle of Four Nations, Gina Daganuk, the environmental legacy of this elder. That Gina Daganuk Algonquin word is like the Zulu word Ubuntu. Everything is interconnected. And we met and we discussed this with the Zulu shaman, Sansui Credo Mutwa. And this orientation enabled them to see climate change before me and others. They had to work hard, these indigenous peoples, to be heard, as their lands had been colonized by people who no longer had the deep relationship with Mother Earth, the penultimate provider of all things. And that is much the case for me, because I'm Indian with some roots many generations ago in India. I lived in South Africa. I live now in Canada for more than 50 years. My connection with the earth is a little bit more disrupted than that of indigenous peoples. So it's taken me that lens to reconnect with the earth. Next slide, please. Some of our work was also focused on peace building, because that was where William Commanda saw environmental exploitation leading to some of the current challenges of our times. And his ideological foundations for his understandings moved from things like journeys, relationships, evolution, bridge building, to practical actions, affirmative actions that brought environmental issues to the attention of governments, community at large, and push forward the work in this area. Next slide, please. So the words Jinawe Dagonoku Ubuntu means everything is interconnected. And warm temperatures are not the only ramification of climate change. Everything is connected on Earth, and climate change includes intense drought, water scarcity, severe fires, rising sea levels, flooding, melting polar ice, catastrophic storms, and declining biodiversity. Climate change is directly contributing to humanitarian emergencies, from heat waves, from wildfires, floods, tropical storms, hurricanes, and they're increasing in scale, frequency, and intensity. And our language has shifted in that creepy way from environmental change to pollution to climate change to extreme weather to climate crisis to now disaster management. Next slide, please. And I've just included this slide, which really reflects on the costs of climate events in the US alone. But it shows how the costs of climate change have rapidly increased from the 1980s, when they started to keep track, to 2010, that decade. And you'll see for the decade of the 2020s, which is really barely halfway through, we've almost reached the costs of the decade before. So you can see that this is becoming a crisis of enormous proportion globally, and of course, of more concern for countries in Africa with more limited resources than the United States. Next slide, please. Nicia, maybe almost when I'm talking about the slide, you can pass on to the next one, because we seem to be losing some time getting from one to the next.
Sure.
So, what happened as a result of the growing awareness of climate change issues was that the United Nations organized a pre-Rio Earth Summit in Paris, bringing together not just governments and scientists to talk about climate issues, but also environmentalists and indigenous peoples. And William Commanda ignited a prayer for a relationship with a living earth. The United Nations created the Convention, an agreement to address these issues, and created Sustainable Development Goals. And 154 states signed on to this convention. This was followed by the Cry of the Earth Conference of Indigenous Peoples, and in 2002, by the United Nations Earth Summit for Sustainable Development hosted here in South Africa. And next slide, please. There are many agreements that have also been part of this process, the last one being the 2015 Paris Agreement. And one of the conferences of this framework was the COP17 conference, and it was held in Durban in 2011. NACCW colleagues participated with me. This was also when we shared the voice of the Ndondo Square learners' remarks on climate change. And my young nephew created this song, You Could Start It, Nicia, for COP17. And it has become a regular part of our teachings. I actually meant you to play a bit of that recording. Trishiva, yes, please. Nicia, I'm not hearing any sound.
There may be some technical issues. And now?
No, I don't. Okay, let's leave it till later.
Oh dear.
I wonder, know whether it would be easier if I shared my screen, and maybe we would avoid the gap in between the slides, because that could be our
Yes, I think let's
technology
try
too, eh?
that. Yeah,
Shall
because
we
I'm
try
not
that?
actually in South Africa myself. Yeah, I think let's try that.
Okay. Share. Okay, how is this? Can you all see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes,
Romola, we can see.
Okay, thank you. And good to see so many of your names over there. The workers that I've known and worked with over the last while. Thank you for joining. And let me see, how far down am I? Can you just remind me what slide number that we were at? Okay, so there we are. So we'll try the Trishivela music later and finish off with it. I imagine I have maybe another 10 minutes or so. So the other issue then is impacting climate change is El Nino. Now, El Nino is a normal climate reality that the Earth uses to regulate its temperatures, and every 2 to 7 years, ocean temperatures rise. This quite separate from normal climate change that is happening right now. In June 2026, the World's Meteorological Organization put out this press release. Fueled by unusual warm ocean temperatures in the tropical Pacific, El Nino conditions are developing and are set to influence global temperature and rainfall patterns, increasing the risk of extreme weather over the coming months, June to August being what they specify. And they say this is now the time for informed decision making, planning, and preparedness is very important right now, which really adds urgency to your disaster management thinking. Here are some of the other implications of climate change, implications for health issues. And the World Health Organization says that climate change is directly contributing to humanitarian emergencies from heat waves, wildfires, tropical storms, hurricanes, and they are increasing in scale, frequency, and intensity. Research shows that 36 billion people already live in areas highly susceptible to climate change. Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250 additional deaths per year. from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, heat stress alone. The damages to health are huge in the US. In areas with weak health infrastructure, mostly in developing countries, uh, they will be least able to cope without assistance to prepare and respond. Fortunately, as Nicia will share later, and as our childcare workers will talk later, they've already been experienced in responding to some major extreme conditions with the learners, and that is very useful for the ongoing research of other communities to know how people have already been learning to cope with these conditions. Of course, greenhouse gas would be better managed through better transportation and reduced air pollution. And of course, we've been conscious of the Ebola crisis in Africa. And some are asking, is there a link to climate change in Africa? And possibly a link with deforestation. Yes, Ebola is one a zoonotic disease which can spread to humans from infected animals through consumption, for example, of bushmeat. And so, yes, indeed, the potential for it to spread in different areas is of grave concern. Another factor that is of importance is climate injustice, which has contributed to a new global crisis, climate refugees. This is a huge challenge across Africa, and in South Africa, we've already been experiencing some of these ramifications. Food disasters hit Zambia and Zimbabwe in 2023 to 24. Um, uh, Mozambique suffered from cyclones, and these created food emergencies. Food and water systems are being seriously challenged everywhere, and this causes people to flee and introduce unplanned patterns of immigration, which place stress on local populations. So, food and climate justice are other issues of our times that youth will have to face. And there's some innovative work that indigenous communities in Africa have already initiated along those lines. With respect to our own child and youth care work with our children's cognitive mapping story, here children have already been quite devastated by floods. Here, 15-year-old learner in grade 10 reports about the current disaster that is taking place in KZN a couple of years ago, with trees falling and destroying house, people losing their lives, and seeing flooded rivers. In Eastern Cape in 2025, just about exactly a year ago, there were many learners who were quite terrified by the flooding that happened at the Wathatha River. The current death toll then was 95, so a lot of people lost their lives. So this now was in the area of President Mandela's birthplace. And so children had been studying heritage and were very conscious of the area, those who hadn't actually lived in the area, and they had just mapped him as a hero. The area flooded was the hole in the wall. Lizzie, I saw you there in the gallery, and this area is one that you'd be familiar with. I drove there many years ago, and in fact, we gave children rides to the waters up and sorry, excuse me, up and down the hills. And really now tourists are demanding better roads to get to remote locations such as that. This, of course, impacts again on climate change. So really we need to be all conscious of these things. And finally, I wanted to go to something else that I researched, the voice of youth. And here we have United Nations and Africa Renewal Project with the ECOSOC Youth Forum. And I found that there were four really interesting youth, 3 of them from Africa, who were talking about climate change. And I wanted to leave you with a link to their voices. And if I can get to this right away, no, I think I shall leave this actually to you. In particular, to pay attention to the presentation at 2.50 minutes. Here we have Zubusie Mazomba, who is a climate justice activist, advocate, and researcher, and he comes from Soweto. He leads youth advocacy at the African Climate Alliance, driving initiatives to ensure meaningful youth participation in decision making. He's a junior negotiator for South Africa's UNICEF delegation since COP26, and he's contributed to negotiations on adaptation, oceans, loss, damage, representing youth and national interest on the global stage. Okay, so I think I've taken enough time right now, so I shall stop sharing. You'll see the other images give you links to the presentations I've shared from, and give you details about how to contact me should you want to. I shall leave the screening of the music video on climate change to the very end of the conference to see if there is time to share it. If not, I'm sure you'll all be able to access the PowerPoint presentation and listen to it yourself. It's really captures everything in a nutshell. It was created by my nephew around the age of under 20, and he's also Zeni's younger son. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy that. Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to join you today. Over back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thumbadoo. Let's give her a round of applause. We will engage with, I hope people has jot down their comments and questions, and we'll come back a very interesting and well-researched topic on global climate change, and especially I'm so worried, wondered about the concept of disaster for us, but we'll come back and talk about that a little bit later. So we'll move on then to our presentation number 2, and this one will be done by Nicia Nobrega, and it will be about NACCW Disaster Management Protocol. So let me briefly just introduce Nicia to you that are new here on the platform, because she did some previously shared with us other important topics, but today she will deal with our disaster management protocol. Nicia, just open here my little document. Nicia Nobrega is a monitoring and evaluation manager at the National Association of Child Care Workers, where she has worked for more than 14 years in program evaluation and research. She leads organizational monitoring and evaluation systems across multiple programs, overseeing data management, reporting quality improvement, and evaluation processes supporting vulnerable children and youth in South Africa. In 2020, she contributed to the NACCW, receiving the MTN Award for Social Change for strong M&E practice in the non-profit sector. She is currently a doctoral candidate in psychology, researching child survivors' abuse and neglect within the South African child protection system. We want to welcome you, Nicia, and hand over to you to share with us the disaster management protocol. If you could join us on the screen, please.
Hi, everyone. So I'm hoping there's no delay. I just see from the presentation earlier that I might have a 5 to 10 second delay, but I'm hoping it'll all go well. And thanks for the introduction. So let me just share my screen. All right, here we go. I'm hoping you can see it.
Yes.
So yes, good. So what I'll present is on the NACCW disaster management protocol. Now, this protocol was developed around 2020 when COVID-19 had impacted all of us. And I'll be going through what that protocol covers. And it was developed to help and guide child and youth care workers, program staff, NACCW on protecting children and families during times of crises, whichever one it is, crisis or crises. So what we're going to cover here is we're going to look at what types of disasters they are, and Romola presented already several of them. What was our response, not just during the pandemic, but during civil unrest and floods some years ago? The principles of the core protocol, the different well-being areas that we focus on children and families when we implement this protocol or our response, and our risk reduction approaches so that we can build more resilient sort of strategies for future if something should happen again, which is likely guaranteed to happen in our communities because of climate change. And then we're going to present some case studies just briefly, because later on our child and youth care worker mentors are going to be going into it a lot more deeply. So what is a disaster? So the technical term is a progressive or sudden, widespread or localized, natural or human-made caused event or occurrence that causes or threatens death, injury, damage to property, disruption of community life. But it's exceeding the usual capacity of the affected people to cope by themselves. So it's something extreme. It's not an accident, a small accident. It's not something basic. It's quite in scope and scale extreme. And there are 6 types of different disasters. And these definitions, if you want to look at it in more detail, I put here, I got this from the UNICEF document on disaster management. There's the link at the bottom, and we'll share these PowerPoints as well. And it's also drawn from the Disaster Management Act, the South African Disaster Management Act. So you get hydrological, these are floods, these are avalanches. Climatological, these are things like wildfires, drought. Meteorological, storms, lightning, disasters. Geophysical, these are landslides, earthquakes. Biological, these are your epidemics like COVID-19, infestations. And technological, these are your human-caused disasters like your civil unrest, water shortages, and you can think of others. The only one that's human-caused are the technological ones. All the others are linked to climate and what is the epidemic? Biological. Okay. And then the technical differences between the different ones, you can look it up as well on the documentation at the bottom where the link is. So our response, what it has been in the past. So the key word here is management, disaster management. And what we are doing with our protocol is that we try to have a document, a guideline, where there's an integrated process, not just us alone, but together with others, of planning and implementing measures to do the following: prevent and reduce the risk when disasters happen, mitigate the severity and consequences of a disaster when it happens to children and families, which we work with, emergency preparedness, especially in rural areas or under-resourced areas where it may have the hardest hit. And then a rapid and effective response to disasters. That's actually this presentation, what it will focus on and what our protocol covers a lot of. And then the post-disaster recovery and rehab to try and sort of address the problems caused by the crisis. So in 2020, we developed the protocol. This protocol is available for our members, which we'll put up as well. If you want to adapt the protocol to your own organization or to your own work, it will be available. 2020 was the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll go through each one in more detail, but how we responded during the national lockdown, how we developed a remote child and youth care worker support during this time, the virtual connection program which we developed. I'll speak about that more just now. In 2021, it was the civil unrest and looting that happened, especially in KZN, but also in Gauteng. How we provided life space counseling, food access to those in need. And then in 2022, the KZN floods and mudslides, where people lost their homes, school damage, and how we helped as part of a broader community response to children and schools. And then, of course, there's still ongoing issues, but we're just going to cover some of the historical responses. So what COVID-19, our response, the first thing was really looking at recognizing child and youth care workers as essential frontline workers in South Africa. So with the national lockdown, we advocated that child and youth care workers, like hospital staff, like other social service practitioners, to be able and allowed, obviously within the limited mobility, to continue to service children in critical need. Child abuse cases, neglect cases, children that were needing that support. We provided PPE, protective equipment. What is the other P? Personal protective equipment. Help distribute it to the workers, access food parcels, and support and e-vouchers to family in critical need. Grief counseling to our staff who had lost family members and during this time, and mentorship support in our programs and to child and youth care workers on the ground. And then, like I said, we developed this virtual connection program. So even though we weren't at scale reaching all these numbers that we reached before during face-to-face plus virtual, we really strengthened the virtual component. We had over 2,000 in this program, regular phone calls. We developed 200, or actually more, chat groups, WhatsApp groups, where we had different number of children within these groups, regular contact with these children, check-ins and follow-up, and over 10,000 sessions, fun sessions, therapeutic sessions, just connecting with children and youth through these WhatsApp and groups, but also other zero-rated platforms at the time that we were using. The KZN floods. So a lot of children, families were impacted by these floods. Their homes were destroyed. So we helped over 600 children receive poverty alleviation support. So your school uniforms, food, stationery, things that they've lost. We helped over 700 children get support with the SASSA disaster financial support grant. Over 200 children were referred for medical attention. And over 4,000 children received counseling for trauma and emotional distress by the child and youth care workers, a significant number. We have at the bottom here a comment by a Department of Education representative who really applauded the child and youth care workers during this time, because we helped the department identify learners, bridge the gap between learners in need to those that need support. Child and youth care workers reporting on a daily basis at schools, assisting with speedy processes in terms of referrals and assessment. So all hands on deck to support families affected by these floods. And then, so the disaster protocol, management protocol has different sections, and one of the sections are linked to its principles. So the first one is on immediacy. We can't really sort of wait weeks, days, sometimes to get something going. It really is about action and responding immediately to the need. Direct, instant involvement, urgency in supporting families. Multi-sector partnerships, super critical with government, with NGOs, with the private sectors, funders, communities, to leverage on everyone's strengths and support. Inclusive. prioritize really the most marginalized children living with disability, chronic illness, helping people get access to medication if they're not able to go themselves, and severe poverty, often people that are hit the most during these times of crises. Really leverage on child and youth care worker characteristics, life space work, counseling, flexible hours in the mornings, in the evenings, really showing up in the best interest of the child. The next principle is on assessment and planning, having a clear plan, assessing, okay, this is the child, this is the family, this is what they lost, this is what they need, and building a plan around it. Leveraging family community and bringing in your SOPs from the program. Rights-based, children's rights at the forefront in all that they're doing during these times. Holistic, assessing for the educational needs, health, psychosocial, and planning around all those different areas. And then M&E, making sure we're tracking what we're doing, how we're doing, and how we're helping the beneficiaries. Then activating the response. So we have a disaster management steering committee within the organization, which we encourage organizations to have, so that it's not just sort of ad hoc and, running around, not really having a direct guide, but a steering committee that meets. Emergency meeting was convened with NACCW Directorate, management program leads, and each team member took responsibility from different tasks in the area, whether it's M&E, finance, program. There was an immediate assessment, response plans like the disaster management protocol, the virtual connection program guideline, partner mobilization where needed, and we implemented and monitored. For example, we established this Mashlangani Fund, where it was specifically for disaster management, where we mobilized resources, food, for example, during the pandemic, and had a campaign around that. Response, so we focus on different areas of the child, like I mentioned earlier. So in terms of education, uniform, stationery, poverty alleviation. At the time, for example, during COVID, ECD centers were closed, schools were closed. So, some of these children, one of the main meals that they get was at school during the food feeding scheme. So helping navigate how we're going to now support those families. Like I said, virtual study groups were also established. Social services, SASSA grant, financial support, helping them navigate lost documents with home affairs, child protection, follow-up, check-ins, is everything okay at home, seeing what's happening now that the children are at home. If the mom or dad are struggling with substance abuse, seeing how child and youth care workers can support and navigate and refer to social workers where needed. Health, medical referrals, PPE, chronic medication support, accessing it, nutrition, food parcels, formula for babies, and accessing food in the absence of the school feeding scheme. And lastly, mental health support linked to life space counseling, like you saw over 4,000 in that floods activity event, grief counseling for staff, for families, and safe spaces for children and families with child and youth care workers maintained. Therapeutic services. So the child and youth care workers role, a lot of it also centered around therapeutic services. And we have a special section in the disaster management protocol on this because it's such a turbulent time for children and families. So we draw on life space work, where child and youth care workers used everyday life events during this time for the opportunity for development and healing for children. Life space counseling, very specifically intentional to mobilize children and families towards facing the difficult and traumatic circumstances. Mentorship and supervision, very focused around mentors, really on the ground, advocating, being that support to child and youth care workers. And then, of course, referral, clinical referral to social workers, counselors, psychologists, different organizations that provide the specialized services. And then this part is really looked at how do we reduce disaster risk? Because we are guaranteed that something will happen. And, we have to be prepared, and how can we mitigate these consequences. So the first area is really making environments safer. We advocate for safe spaces, for mobile water tanks, solar chargers, support beneficiaries in schools with their disaster response plans and be part of this, making sure that safe parks and areas are safe for children if needed to go. We build resilience and independence. We child participation in disaster management. We inform children. We don't necessarily keep them out the loop of what's happening, supporting families to prepare and respond, especially in an area, for example, where it's very prevalent with fires. And how do we support those children and families to prepare if something should happen again? And ensure education and health needs continue during these crisis moments. And then stakeholder preparedness, training drills, contingency planning, having a network of stakeholders that we can draw on when something happens. We can also conduct awareness events on climate change. Our youth forum is very active on awareness events on climate change and human-made disasters across different sectors. And we are rounding up because I am aware of time. So I'll just present briefly the case studies that we have. Again, later on in the next presentation, they'll go in more detail. But here we have an example in the KZN floods, a family in an informal settlement with a mom, grandmother, and 2 children in high school. It was badly affected by the 2022 floods. The teacher referred the young girl to the child youth care worker who was crying. And her home had collapsed. Her family was evacuated to community hall. She lost most of her belongings. So the child and youth care worker's response conducted a home visit, did the assessment, provided life space counseling to the child, sought donations and provided a food parcel, blankets and clothing from the NACCW, but also the community, advocated for the learners to receive new stationery, helped the family register for home rebuilding assistance. And the girl continued to attend trauma counseling sessions at school with the child and youth care worker. Also in the KZN floods, an example of a single mother and her children lost their home and all her household contents in these floods. The family sought shelter in the local community. And the child and youth care worker, again, the response, advocacy for school uniforms, stationery, basic needs, food, and essentials. The child and youth care worker also worked with NACCW and the Gift of the Givers to obtain land to rebuild the family's home. NACCW's Mashangani Fund helped support home rebuilding resources for the family, and ongoing counseling provided by child and youth care worker and a DSD social worker in this case as well. And lastly, with the civil unrest, in 2021 in KZN, there was widespread looting and violence. It left many children confused, frightened, emotionally distressed, especially if they, in cases where they witnessed their own family members participating in the looting. So schools and community spaces were disrupted and access to necessities limited. So here the child and youth care workers' response, access food parcels for these beneficiaries. Staff in the most affected areas were supported to work from home, and the child and youth care workers provided life space counseling, emotional support to the children during this time. Child and youth care workers held discussions with children to unpack the broader implications of the unrest, helping them understand and make sense of what was happening. So this is briefly the disaster management protocol that NACCW implements. So we covered just some of the main areas. And then I'll hand over to, there'll be a question and answer section later if there's anything you want to comment or ask about. But I'll hand over to the 3 presenters that will follow, who go into a lot more detail in terms of what they did on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nicia, for sharing with us the NACCW disaster management protocol. We have 3 child and youth care workers who will share with us their case studies from the field in terms of disaster response and management they have done. And I briefly would like to introduce them, and they will speak in this order as well. We've got Imia Nkwane, she's from Gauteng, Isibindi, Isikuleni. And then Miss Slindile Tabede, so she's from KwaZulu-Natal, Isibindi, Isikuleni. And then Sheila Miller from the Western Cape Youth Forum. But let me briefly then also share with you. We'll start then with Imia, who is a child in Nkwane, is a child and youth care worker with over 18 years of experience in the field. He began his career in 2008 at Child Welfare Tshwane as a child and youth care worker, providing direct support to children, youth, and families. In 2014, he joined the National Association of Child and Youth Care Workers as a trainer and assessor, facilitating and assessing the Child and Youth Care NQF Level 4 qualification. In 2021, he transitioned into a mentorship role under the Isibindi Isikuleni program, where he currently supports and mentors child and youth care workers in school communities. His experience includes direct care, training, assessment, supervision, and mentorship, reflecting his commitment to the well-being of children and youth and the professional development of child and youth care workers. Let's welcome Imia Nkwane, who will share with us then from the field his experience. Imia, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Nicia. Thank you, Romola, for well-presented and informative presentations conducted. And in addition to what Nicia has just concluded now, I would like to say that climate change actually affects our young people's safety, the education, and the emotional well-being, also not forgetting their development as well. So as child and youth care workers, where do we fit in here? One may ask to say, why do we bother ourselves? Why are we actually talking about this? What can we do? Because this is a natural disaster, maybe it's a climate change. So our role as child and youth care workers on the field is to actually coordinate services and help young people to actually build resilience after the disaster. Actually connect them to those stakeholders that have been mentioned by Nicia. And it is also important that we are on the field to also provide the psychosocial support for these young people. So in Gauteng, we do have areas that are in low-lying areas, and sometimes they experience some floods. And in some cases, we do have cases where the shacks of our family members or the learner's family got burnt, either by nature or either by human fault. So specifically now I'm going to focus on a particular case where there was a flood in one of our learners' home, which resulted in the learner also being at the verge of dropping out of school. So this particular young person was staying with a grandmother and the other two siblings next to the river. So apparently in the recent heavy rains that has poured last year, the family lost almost everything that they had, including their documents, including their clothes, blankets, and so on. As a result, the family was actually relocated, was taken to another alternative home. And at the school, the CYC was given the case, and In handling the case, the CYC provided the psychosocial support to the learner, conducted a home visit, ensured that she creates a safe space where the learner actually is comfortable to talk about her experience of the floods and actually the experience of being in a situation where she was in. So also the CYC ensured that she connects the learner and the family with other emergency relief services where they were given food parcels, clothing, and blankets. So in that particular case as well, in summary, the CYC provided educational support where he ensured that the learner receives academic support and that the family's home is being repaired. So other service providers were involved here, social workers, including the Department of Social Development were involved, and the learner was taken back to school. Thank you. So in conclusion, we can say that we are in a position where we cannot stop the floods from happening, but then we can assist young people and their families to recover and to regain their confidence after the trauma. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Imia, for sharing with us this well-coordinated intervention in the life space of young people and the families. Then our next presenter is then that will speak to us is Ms. Lindile Tabede. Let me briefly also share a short bio with you. She is a KZN mentor for the Isibindi Izikoleni program. She brings 12 years of work experience in the child and youth care field, having worked across preschools, residential care settings, child and youth care centers for the youth in conflict with the law, and in various community-based programs before moving into a current school-based role. She holds a national diploma in child care and a certificate in project management, and has recently completed further training through Jelly Beans in trauma-informed care and children's sexuality. This early, she participated in a research study for the DG Murray Trust Isibindi Izikoleni program. This combination of practical experience and ongoing professional development allows her to support children, youth, and fellow child and youth care workers with both skills and quality practice. Outside of work, Lindile enjoys spending time with family and reconnecting with nature through gardening and plants. Lindile, welcome, and over to you to share with us from your experience.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to everyone who is here with us this morning. Thank you to Romola for the lovely presentation that you had for us, as well as Nicia for the very informative presentation that you had in terms of disaster management. So as our chair has said, I am Slindile Tabete, mentor for the KZN Isibindi Ezikoleni. What I'm going to share with you this afternoon actually is how we have worked as Isibindi Ezikoleni on disaster management. So in KZN, particularly in Phoenix as well as in Nanda, you'd remember that we had in 2021, I think it was in July, where we had the civil unrest that occurred in our community. So at that time, a lot of our children, a lot of our learners were affected by what was happening at that time. because there was a lot of looting that was going on. School was disrupted. A lot of families were displaced, and then some people lost members of their families through that, especially because, as I said, Inanda and Phoenix are in the north of Durban, and those two communities are very close to one another, and there were also racial tensions that transpired during the looting. So we had quite a number of learners at the time that were affected, having had learners who were going to school in the area of Phoenix as well as Inanda. Some were even unable to go back to school at that time. So that is when Isibindi Esikoleni was implemented in the area of in the area of Phoenix as well as Inanda. And then when we look at the floods, again, a year later, which was I think it was in May 2022, when the same areas, Inanda, experienced the floodings that occurred again. So in that space, at least at that time, we did have child and youth care workers who were working in most of the schools, again, in Phoenix as well as Inanda, having had the unrest the previous year. So when Isibindi Esikoleni was implemented in this area, as the child and youth care workers were going on and implementing the program, then the floods came in. So again, this was another distraction to the children who were going to schools, to their families, to the communities that they were living in, because the schools, again, were affected. Even them going to school, it was affected. So the floods, I think it was one of the biggest things, again, that affected them, because a lot of homes, you would find that a lot of homes where our children who were coming to our schools were located, most of their homes were swept away by the floods. So they lost everything, all of their belongings. We're talking their school uniform, their furnitures at home, their clothes, the school stationery. So that is when the child and youth care workers came in. Immediately after it happened, what we had to do is we had a team of 22 child and youth care workers at that time, and 2 of our schools were badly affected by the floods. Those schools were Brookdale Secondary as well as Ottawa Primary, where most of our learners were going into. Luckily, we did have child and youth care workers who were working in those schools. So what we needed to do, or what we did as a team, is we first went and assessed the damage that was done. We had to conduct, even though it was no longer home visits because the homes were swept away. So we had to go into the areas where our learners were staying. We had to go and assess the amount of damage that was done. Once we had done that, the families that were displaced were located or were placed in 2 locations, which was Amawoti Community Hall as well as Zwelisha Community Hall. So that is where we had most of our children or learners that were located in that space. So after we had done the assessment, we went into the community hall. When we got there, there was quite a number of organizations that were coming in wanting to help. However, at that stage, there was no sense of organization or plan that had been put in place as to when whoever comes in, this is how things need to be done. So we had to take it upon ourselves as the child and youth care workers to, when we went and assessed the situation at the community halls, we had found that there were parents there were children, there were a lot of people who were staying there. And then whenever help would come, for an example, people coming in with donations, people would just grab, because there was no sense of organization at that point. So what we did as a child and youth care workers was we assessed the number of people who were living in that community hall, with the help, of course, of the community leaders. We had to, as Nicia said, we needed to have an assessment and then a plan, look at how many people were placed in each community hall. And then from those people, how many children do we have that are residing there? Because you would know a community hall it's one open plan, which means people are bathing here, people are sleeping here, which is not conducive, especially for the children. So that exposes them to a whole lot of things that they are not even supposed to be exposed to. Worst part, having had the disaster of the floods happening to them as well. So we then, once we had assessed the situation, we started tracking the number of people who were there, the children according to the age groups. Then the team of My Child in Need care workers then started distributing the learners according to their age, because at that stage, we now had to come up with a plan as to who's going to do what with what age group, because remember, as I said, schools were distracted, so learners were no longer going to school for some time. So we had to make a plan as to what is it that is going to keep them busy during the days when they are not going to school, not having the school uniform. So we had to come up with a whole lot of activities, a whole lot of educational activities that were going to assist the learners. So we divided ourselves into groups, collected the learners, and then started working with those learners. So on a daily basis, we would have a group of childcare workers who would either go in the morning. First, there was tea that needed to be served. So they would help with the soup kitchen, doing breakfast, which is bread and tea, and then serving it. Our main focus was the children. The parents were there, however, our main focus was the children. So we would serve breakfast to them, then after, have them bath, then after we would start with our daily activities, which as I said, it's the educational activities that the child and youth care workers had implemented. So we'll do that throughout the day. And then another thing was, as the donations were coming in, since we had planned that we would have a list of all the people who were living at the community hall at that time, in both community halls. So whenever help will come or donations, at least we know which families have gotten this kind of donation, whether it's your essentials, your household essentials. So those who have gotten the blankets and all those kinds of things, that means the next donation that comes in, it needs to go to the next person. So there was a lot of chaos that was happening at the beginning, but until we came in and then provided our support as the child and youth care workers, then things started running smoothly until we were able to even identify, because a lot of people also were coming from the outside, people who were not affected by the floods, but coming into the community hall to get the donations as well. So having that list of the people who were affected was much of help. And then another thing was the child and youth care workers again had to go back into school and then advocate for the learners who did not have the school uniforms, who had lost their stationery, their school stationery. So working together with Department of Education, again, those learners were able to then again get their school uniform provided to them, as well as their school uniform. So as time went, we were then able to gradually have them go back to work. So there was a lot of, again, life space counseling that was going on, that was taking place during the day when the child and youth care workers were there to provide the life space work. Referrals also were conducted, and the Department of Social Development was also in the place to also provide that kind of social support to the learners. But most of all, the psychosocial support was being provided by the child and youth care workers on a daily basis. So I would say that is how we were able to come across that challenge. So I think going forward as child and youth care workers, it is no longer the issue of us providing only the psychosocial support. So as Romola said earlier, that everything is now interconnected, especially when it comes to climate change. So these disasters, it is something that you cannot predict. And at the frequency at which they are happening now, as well as the intensity at which they are happening, it calls for us as child and youth care workers to be proactive. So when we're conducting our structured development programs, it is no longer the programs that are talking about sexual reproductive health education, but also teaching the children and the learners about the climate change. What do you do in a case where there's a disaster? Things like at home, you need to have no longer a box now, but a plastic that is covered in case of a disaster, in case of floods. Make sure that you have all of those documents that are important for everyone. They are put away in a plastic packet where they will not be damaged should there be floods that are affecting the area or that particular family. So I think as child and youth care workers going forward, it requires, again, as I said, that we learn about these things and then again go out and raise awareness awarenesses to the families, to the communities, but especially the children, since we are working in schools, so that they are aware of these things and they know what to do should they find themselves in those situations. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lindle, for sharing with us also from your side, your interventions there in KZN, and one could see there's a lot of work and planning that has to go into it. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause for those who are able to use their reactive tools. Thank you. Then our last child and youth care worker that will share with us is Sheila Duplessis, but now she's got a new surname, Miller, and she's a child and youth care worker and youth leader and after-school coordinator, a mentor and motivator with a passion for empowering young people to reach their full potential. She said she has got extensive experience working with children and youth, creating supportive environments that foster personal growth, leadership, development, and positive choices. Through her career, she has demonstrated strong leadership skills in coordinating youth programs, directing camps, and mobilizing youth groups to engage in meaningful community developmental activities. Her ability to connect with young people, build relationships based on trust, inspire positive change, has made her to be an effective role model and mentor in her community and among her peers. As a skills program coordinator and camp director, she said she's committed to developing impactful initiatives that nurture confidence, resilience, teamwork, and leadership among youth. Driven by genuine desire to serve and uplift others, I continue to make a lasting impact by creating a safe space for young people and everyone around me. Sheila, from the Western Cape Youth Forum, we hand over then to you to also share with us your interventions, experiences pertaining to disaster management. Sheila, you may open your camera and unmute. Do we have any indication if Sheila is...
Hello.
Sheila?
Okay. Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Can you... that's it. Thank you, Sheila.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sheila. Sheila used to be Duplessis, yes, correction, but it's now Muller. Good afternoon, and thank you for the leadership for allowing me this space and this platform to just speak about my experience and the work that I've done so far. However, within working with the youth, for this year, since January up until now, at the present moment, with the community that I'm working currently, it's called the Igoli Informal Settlement. We've been experiencing, the one disaster was the fire, which was caused by human, and then the other one was the heavy rains that we just had a few months ago. And on the with the fire disaster, it was quite bad, and in that one, that is where we lost a lot of our young people, or the children that is in our program, which is the after school program and the youth program. They lost a lot of their homes, and also they lost a lot of their personal belongings, like the previous our previous coordinators or child and youth care workers was also explaining, which is the school uniform, everything about them. So at our work currently from my church, which is now is the partner that is working within the Igoli informal settlement. So they so when these things occur, because the children belong to the church and they are part of the after school program and the youth programs and all the activities that we are running, so they were immediately affected through these disasters. So what we did was, when the disaster occurred, the fire especially, that one was the first one. As a management team, we went into our community, into the community of Igoli, and we did, the first thing we did was the assessment. And what we found out, when we did the assessment, is most of our most there was about 30 houses that burnt off that night, and then most of them, 15 of them, was the families that was the families that we were working with in our program. So we have the after school program, and we have the mentee and the mentor program. And so what we did was, we did the assessment, and then we first worked on the ones that belong to the program, and then we made sure that they are taken care of and they were looked after first, and make sure that they are helped first at this time. So what we discovered also with that, most of them, they obviously they lost their personal belongings as well. And in that, we it was out then, as a management team, those were the things that we kind of took in consideration. How were we going to go forward with getting these people's personal belongings, like SASSA cards, birth certificates, and all that. What we found out in this case was also that, which was a very sad story, and that was one of the there was three at one of the houses, and this girl, two of them, they were part of the mentee and mentor program, and the two of them were left in their house, the with the two other siblings. The mother left them in the house, locked them up in the house, and they were alone currently when the fire occurred. And the eldest one of the group was about 12 years old, and the rest was younger than her. And when the fire started, then she's the one that was calling out, and we almost lost that whole family. And the mother was not at home at the time. She locked the kids up, and then she went on with the partying because it was over the weekend. So we immediately took that upon us, and we got the necessary people. We did the necessary referral, because at the time the children's life were at risk. And the church plays a very vital role within the community, where these things are taking place. And so the first thing then that we did was get all the families together, and then we went to get all the families together. And then at that time, then the church started going into the community, and also have dish out food and it was also the breakfast, the lunch, and the supper. So we, as a church, we kind of worked very timelessly in order to um to create a safe space for these families. So our church was then the connecting place where everybody would come together. The children, we took the children and the families. There was a space created for them to take showers and baths as well, and then also to clean up. We then immediately started a drive with a donation drive where we got a lot of donations for the kids and families, and even we took the children that lost their school uniforms and everything, because that was just a week before the exams started, the March exams. Yes, that these things happen, and then we took them to go buy the school uniform at the school. There was about 10 of them that needed school uniform from top to bottom, with books, with stationery as well. So it was quite huge. It was quite sad. And I think what really struck me was the faces of the families, how they look, when they have lost everything. And that made me quite aware of that. We need to, as a youth forum, we need to look of ways and means of how we can find ways to save these type of things. What can we do? What can we put in place so that people don't lose their important documentation? Because these are the things that that they need every day. Like a child need a birth certificate, a parent need a ID card. The SASA cards need to be there and stuff like that. So what we did it was, as a church, we then started a hub called, where we have different entities, where we connected with the Department of Education, where we connected with the clinics as well. So now at this church, we have the clinics that is there every day for people that is struggling to go to the clinics as well. So and then we also have the community leaders that is quite involved with the church. We also have we are now connected with social workers that is working with the Igoli community as well. So a lot of things as we kind of really reach out to, even to the counselor. We reach out to all of all of the stakeholders, in order to make this informal settlement work better when there's a disaster happening. And then after we've rebuilt the houses and the families with the fire, and then guess what? With the rain that was taking place, we lost again a group. We lost again. Not lost people though, but we had the same situation where places were flood, and in this, we only had about four houses that was damaged, waterlogged and everything. And whereas we had our elderly person in our church, she is actually this year, she is turning 100 years old, and she's also the eldest person within in the community of Igoli. So her house was damaged, so we had to rebuild her house. And we had to be so it was two elderly ladies. We had to rebuild their houses. I mean, I sent some pictures to Jabu, where we are busy reconnecting families and reconnecting the houses and trying to get things back. So again, the importance of the documents, how we need to make sure that these are the things that need to be at a safe place, or these are the important information that needs to be packed away, or it needs to be covered so so well that it doesn't damage at that time, or it should be given or need to be left by someone that they trust, in order not to lose these things. Because you find out that when people has lost their personal belonging, they feel lost, and they feel that life is over. But what we are doing is, at our church currently, is making them feel that it's okay. We've got these things happening, we've got people trying to assist, we're getting people in to talk to you, to everyone, about the security and the taking care of our personal belongings, especially when it comes to the documentation. But what I love is, when the house is rebuilt and the house is, when you give back the house to even the lady, our ma from the community, we call her ma. When we gave back her house, or when we took her back, because she had to stay now by someone else, sharing her, sleeping over by someone else's house because she couldn't use her own house, or she couldn't sleep in the house because it was um, waterlogged. The water was very deep in the house and stuff. So when we were officially done with her and we took her back to our house, it was all tears of joy, and that made my heart real good, made me feel good. It made me feel that this woman's dignity is given back to her, even though she's in such a huge age. I mean, a real woman woman of strength that almost actually lost her house, but here she's got the houses rebuilt again. So when it comes to disaster, I must say, we have a space where this community really can come together. And what I love and what I enjoyed was the Ubuntu experience that was there, where everybody chip in, everybody helps, everybody connect with each other in order to make this thing happen, and to make it and to give back their families their homes again, and the smiles on their faces of the children, especially when they are bathed, when they are dressed well, and they feel good. So we even started now a
And
what do you call it?
Sheila, you must
Yes,
round up now. You must round
okay,
up. Thank you.
okay. Sorry, I'm rounding off. So
Yeah.
with that said, climate change is very important. We need to at all times speak about it. We need to do at all times awareness. We need to make sure that everybody, whether it's the youngest child to the eldest person, need to know and understand the importance of how climate change is important, that we know what to do, when to do, and how to respond to a disaster, and not that we will be giving up, but that we'll continue to stand fast as a community, as a group of stakeholders. We need to work hand in hand in order to make things happen. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheila. I can see you're passionate about your work and what you do, but we will have to make more time next time for child and youth care workers to also be on this platform. Thank you very much to all those that have participated. And now we've come to the session where we would like people to share their comments or questions. Firstly, we just want to remind you, I see there in the comment section that Donald has indicated that you need to put your name and your number for the council here, so that for CPD points. So please do that for us as well. I see here from the comments, you can raise your hand if you've got any questions or comments to share with us. But I just see here there's somebody that already said thank you to all presenters for an informative webinar. These discussions on climate change and its impact on children and youth were insightful and highlighted the very important role of child and youth care workers in supporting vulnerable communities. And then ST said being proactive with documents minimizes the amount of stress of having to go back and redo them whilst the family is still dealing with the disaster and the stressful situation. Lovely work, presented with passion. This current epoch needs passionate workers. What I loved and what I enjoyed. Yeah. So these are some of the comments that I've picked up. Donald, I don't know if you have perhaps also saw some other comments there in the chat box.
And no, Mr. Chai didn't pick up any.
Yeah.
But I had a question that
Yes.
came from me that we're talking much about fire and floods, but there are other disasters like the heat waves and the extreme cold that is being experienced. So I was asking if there is one or two people who can share their experiences as to how they responded to this, if they ever responded to such disasters or emergencies. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. There are some questions. The Donald has posed if people would like to share their opinions, comments, or experiences. You may raise your hand or comment to us. We would welcome your contributions. Yes, Donald, you may continue.
Thank you very much. In the absence of any response, I think I just want to single out one point made by Sheila, and it may also have come up from others as well, that it is very important that we ensure that we teach our beneficiaries about looking after their documents in case of disasters, because a disaster, you may not have, you may not be warned that it's going to happen. It can happen at any time, so they must make sure that the legal documents are in a safe place and they are protected from getting wet should there be any disaster, and they are easy to be found if they are ever needed, especially for people who are staying in the informal settlements. It's important that they have got a safe place where they are keeping their legal documents. Thank you.
Cecilia, you want to also share a comment?
Yeah, I think yeah, that is important. I think that is why we started this thing where we would go and do an awareness on how to prevent these things from happening. So especially the elderly people, so we created a kind of box, but it's more out of recycling material, where it can't be it's not damaged by whether it's for floods. Yes, it will be safe from that, but it's been covered so much, so we're trying to uh, we tried managing ways and means of how best this little box or this box can keep the documents safe. We are trying to, we always looking for ways and things, to better the box for the documents so that people don't lose it, because what we found is a lot of them, they that is not one, it's almost like that is not part of their thought of taking care of the documents, but we've really implemented that now into the community because of how the disasters occurs and how it happens so quickly and rapidly. So yeah, we are looking really, we're really taking that one serious. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila. I see. Let's see another hand here. Slandile, yes, you may
Oh,
speak.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was me. Just to add on what Sheila just said, I think when we speak about being proactive and then ensuring that I would say we educate the children, we educate the families, the communities especially when it comes to the seasons that we know that they are prone to either having more rain, where we have most fires that are happening. For an example, in winter, people want to keep warm, but the ways in which they are keeping warm are the ways that may not be conducive for the children and the families. So, and it's not something that we need to do only ourselves as child and youth care workers. So this thing of stakeholder engagement involving other departments, like your fire departments, they do have these awareness campaigns that they go around educating families. So it's only a matter of, if you have a child and youth care worker in the area that can actually go around either in the community or find whether it's the local clinic, whether it's the local community leaders, and find out where this kind of help can be received. Have people come in, especially in the informal settlements, where a lot of fires break out during winter time. So if there can be like an awareness campaigns that are done during that time, that is going to help. And then we know during springtime going forward, moving into summer, there's a lot of rain that comes in. So there's a lot that we can teach the communities. Also, even in the point of saving water, because at this point we have a lot of water that is coming in through the rain. So how can we preserve that amount of water? So it's a win-win situation. We are educating the community at the same time. We want to help them see how they can preserve the amount of water that we are getting. So it's basically educating ourselves as the child and youth care workers, and then going into communities and also educating them together with the other stakeholders. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Slindile. I think Nicia also spoke about this issue of reducing disaster risk, and one of the things that we notice is making the environment safe and to build this resilience and independence, this awareness work that Slindile spoke about. But child and youth care workers, you spoke about the issues of fire and floods, etc. And we have experienced now in most of these communities, especially the coastal cities, with the heavy rains, there were lots of floods. And I think a lot of them has to do also with what we have in our communities is now pollution, people throwing papers and all sorts of rubbish all over. And a lot of communities are saying the municipality is to be blamed because they don't clean the draining systems. And I wonder, in terms of when we talk about disaster, because some of these disasters, I would say, are human-made disasters and not only civil unrest as a cause, but because we don't care about the environment, the deforesting and throwing around all our stuff that we don't need and throw it everywhere. I thought it's only a problem here in my town, Port Elizabeth, but I notice it's all over South Africa that we have a non-caring community. I'm not sure if our presenters would want to comment on this. Is there something we can do, and intervene much more drastically to assist? Because I've also experienced flooding here in my area because of blocked drains, and it's built up environments that also not only informal settlements. Maybe Nicia or Romola can come in there for us. Any comments from your side before we then close?
Yes, from my perspective, you're raising very important issues. And the thing is, it's like climate change is such a crisis now at the global stage that inevitably there are going to be more challenges, more disasters, more extreme disasters. And so the critically important thing is how to be more and more resilient to respond. And I mean, the challenges are at global levels, parts of the world that are contributing to the climate shift are not necessarily feeling the impact that folk in Africa are not quite yet, even though it's accelerating everywhere. And also, other places have resources that aren't available in Africa. One of the things that I'm kind of concerned with is that nature becomes so frightening to the learners and the youth that they don't find any strength in learning from the examples of how animals and trees are responding themselves in the evolutionary path and working with nature. So that is like, on the one hand, yes, the challenges for governments, for local governments to respond. In fact, in your community, I recall maybe 2021, and we were not able to drink water. And of course, that is caused in part by some of the activities out there in the ocean, out there in the water supplies and the rivers and things like that. So we have to advocate, and this is where I found the voice of youth, South African youth, pretty significant in advocating at global levels to impact change. And that last link that I shared with you, you'll see powerful young voices from youth. This is how we can just take sort of our local experiential messages to platforms where people have to pay more and more attention to us. Yeah, this is challenging. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thumbadoo. Nicia, any last comment from your side?
Yeah, just to thank everyone for attending this webinar. I think it's been quite an important webinar because, climate change, you sort of see it separate. It's out there, it's about climate, but you don't really link it to child and youth care practice. But it is very, very relevant because, we work in the life spaces of children and families who are affected by so many different things, including the effects of climate change. And I think that we it's important to have structure and a guideline and processes in place so that we don't just sort of willy-nilly do things, but actually we do things with so much intention, and then having it written out and structured in a nice way will be quite important. So again, I do advocate and encourage people to refer to the disaster management protocol, adapt it, use it, play with it, and see how it can apply to the organizations or work that you do. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Nicia. This just the last comment that I want to also share with you here. This presentation highlights that climate change is not just an environmental issue, but a child and youth care issue because it directly affects the health, safety, and well-being of children, which ultimately is the primary population that child and youth care workers support. We've come to the end of then our webinar. We will, before we go, then allow Dr. Thumbadoo to play for us that song item. But before we do that, we just want to first do the vote of thanks. And as we say our goodbyes, we will also then listen to the song on the climate change or environment. But we actually inquisitive to hear what it's all about. But I want to first call on our Gauteng Provincial Chairperson, Noslanshla, and I've learned a second name now for the first time, Hilda Nslapo, to come and do the vote of thanks for us. Just a few things about her. She said she has dedicated her life to caring for and empowering children and youth. Beginning her journey at Kids Haven Shelter in 1997, she later contributed to the work of Epworth Children's Home before moving into a current role as Child and Youth Care Team Leader at the Department of Social Development. Her academic achievement includes a BTech in Child and Youth Care Development from Durban University of Technology, a certificate in Public Management and Administration from the University of Pretoria, and most recently a postgraduate diploma in Child and Youth Care. Ms. Slansla is the Gauteng Provincial Chairperson of the NACCW, and she was in this position from 2004 to 2008, and then she came back again. We respect her for her vision, resilience, and ability to inspire. She's committed to building structures of accountability and compassion that enable children and youth to thrive. Ms. Slansla, Hilda, and Slapo, we hand over to you to do the honorable vote of thanks for us. Please show your
Thank
face.
you. Are you able to see my face now?
We can
Yes,
see your
dear.
beautiful face. You've got your glasses on today.
Thank you very much. You know, that name, Hilda, it's my granny's name, eh?
Okay.
So it's very special. Yeah, it's a very special name. Thank you very much, Elwin. I just want to take this opportunity and thank everyone. What a session. Wow. I will start from Mr. Donald Ngonyama, our director. Without her, we wouldn't have a session like this. And Ms. Fiona Balkobind, who is our national chairperson, our national exec committee, and then going to our speakers, I will start with Dr. Romola Thumbadoo. Thank you very much. You've educated us about the climate change, what it is, its implications in recent years, how it was taken for granted in the past. You mentioned work done with our own Credo Mutua. That was lovely. Yes, so it showed you actually displayed your passion about the subject and the nature itself. We really appreciate with gratitude how you shared with us your presentation. We would like to thank you very much. And then moving on to our other speakers, Ms. Nicia, Nobrega. Please, if I spell incorrectly, please forgive me. Ms. Nicia Nobrega, Mr. Emian Kwame, Ms. Silindile Tabete, and Sheila Duplessis. Thank you very much. You know, your presentations on disaster management actually displayed for us child and youth care in action, you know. You've actually opened our minds to a subject that maybe has been taken for granted, but it's actually these days it's very much in our face because it's things we deal with on a daily basis. We are faced with natural disasters. And not only natural disasters, there's also lots of other disasters that we deal with. And unfortunately, in the end, children and families end up being part of those, and they're actually at the receiving end. So we've learned about how you've offered mental health support to the victims, giving therapeutic support and developmental healing, and educating us how to create safer environments, and how you manage to mitigate the risk whenever you're dealing with the victims, and also how you supported them, the victims, from the time the disaster was experienced right until they've gone through all the stages of their healing. So that shows the power of child and youth care, that being in the safe life space means being there or being consistently there at the time when the people are needing you the most. And this has also highlighted that child and youth care is not only limited to CYCCs or only in schools, it's everywhere. Wherever a child is, a child and youth care worker is needed. And whatever affects children is a concern for child and youth care workers. I would like to take this opportunity and say thank you very much. I would like, and also I didn't thank Mr. Gallant enough, you know. Elwin, thank you very much. You always show up whenever you are expected to. And even when you're supposed to be resting, we keep calling you and you keep coming back and you keep doing the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those beautiful words of thanks, and also for thanking me in my retirement for all the hard work that I have to do for the NACCW. But we appreciate everybody that has attended this webinar, and we have this webinars on a monthly basis. So just watch the space so that we can share and learn from each other. We'll ask then Dr. Thumbadoo if you could play for us that song as we will listen, and then we will afterwards close our webinar.
Okay, thank you. You may watch, you may dance your way out, and I put the link in the chat box in case the childcare workers want to share it with the learners. Here we go. Leave whenever you're ready to.
Golden halo emerging from the ocean as it flows waves with the air's motion. Uncertain, yet to shore the waves flow to meet with land and let the rivers grow. While a fiery sphere exploding from the land, illuminating the earth by raising its hand. This fire consumes our skies, water flowing, refreshing our lives, birds soaring with the moving air. Animals on the land we build. Fire's no longer in its true beauty. Killing is now its unintended duty. Polluting the air, destroying the earth, water evaporating to make room for more deserts. We call it global warming and turn a blind eye to nature while slowly killing ourselves by this vagrant behavior. Natural disasters don't seem so natural. Powers of nature becoming less beautiful, from rising sea levels to deadly heat when we've taken nature's course and changed its way. A probable root cause for conflicts and wars, and the economy gets affected, leaving more people poor. Aggravated disease spreading like gossip, leaving us feeling like we are all held hostage. Plus the loss of biodiversity, habitat, plants, animals, and all species.
Never, and I mean never.
Thank you very much, and goodbye. Thank you, Dr. Romola, and may you have a good day further on.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. We close the webinar then.
Thank you.